I just want to preface this whole conversation by saying we can talk about the algorithm today and it will be a different discussion next week.
Yeah.
So
as long as the overall like takeaway from the discussion is that we make the algorithm, and like honestly, as influencers, don't sell yourself short in thinking that there's this like big bad algorithm coming after you and there's nothing you can do about it. You have the power to shape that.
This is the Good Influencer Podcast with Julia Markham and Becca McLeod, pulling back the curtain of how this multi-billion-dollar industry works. If you're going to be an influencer, be a good one.
hey, Becca.
How's it going over there?
It is, it's like one of those weeks where I'm going to be really honest. It's like, this is going to sound so dumb to people that aren't influencers, but it's like one of those weeks where it's really hard to be an influencer. I don't know if it's hormonal or like we had a meeting on Monday and like our follower count is like a little stagnant and it's like I'm tired this week. And it's just one of those, I think those times happen.
I get that. But honestly, I loved the conversation we had in the Monday meeting about like, because, we talk about like we do our report about what's down, what's up. And then we have our IDS section of the meeting, which is when we identify, discuss, and solve. And I feel like going into it and saying like, okay, these numbers are down, but then IDSing it and like talking about what we're going to do to fix it. I loved that. I loved that section of the meeting.
Yeah. And that's something that if it's just you, yourself, and you, like you can still have IDS. It's so fun when things are working, right? It's so fun when views are up and revenue's up and you had a viral whatever moment. But there's also going to be times when it's like this. Whatever level you're at, you are going to have moments where it's like, oh, this is not our best week. And instead of, and I did appreciate that conversation because instead of just saying like, oh, this didn't do as well, you IDS it. You identify what the issue is. You define anything that, went wrong with it. This is what we did. This was the result. You really have to look at all of those statistics and then you can think about what the solution is going forward. Because dwelling in like this nothing is hitting or things aren't as good this week as they were last week, that is going to happen. And the IDS or the really critical analysis of what you're doing is what's going to get you back up. Also, it might be just a hormonal week and that too will pass, but it's like work-wise, you still show up and you still like everyone, even if it's just you are so focused on, solving the issue. I know that this is something that Becca and we've talked about a lot, like on a personal level, is you are such an optimistic person. And,
I appreciate that.
And you can look at even the worst data and see the positive. And I think that's a really great gift. But it's also something that we're like, okay, but Becca, we also have to talk about like the numbers.
Yeah. That's because in my mind, I am so motivated by solutions. Like I am not stressed when things are down as long as I have a plan. And so in my mind, I'm like presenting in the meeting, I'm like, yeah, this is down. But in the back of my mind, I got 50 different solutions. I'm not worried about it.
And my favorite part is actually talking about like the solutions. It's always hard. No matter who you are, no matter what kind of issue it is, even if it's offline, let's say if it's an offline issue, the hardest part is identifying the issue. right? The hardest part is saying out loud, hey, there might be an issue here. And even harder, it might be me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also like taking a step back and realizing I can fix this. Is actually something I have control over.
Yeah. Or this might be the result of my own blank, my own stubbornness, my own kind of just being comfortable. You know, I know we're going to be talking about the algorithm today, and I do see a lot of influencers. This is probably their biggest pain point that they want to talk about, the algorithm, you know? And it's like, okay, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about the algorithm. However, I just want to preface this whole conversation by saying we can talk about the algorithm today, and it will be a different discussion next week.
Yeah.
So,
but as long as the overall like takeaway from the discussion is that we make the algorithm, and like honestly, as influencers, don't sell yourself short in thinking that there's this like big bad algorithm coming after you and there's nothing you can do about it. You have the power to shape that.
mm-hmm.
So don't sell yourself short in thinking I just can't do anything about it. You're not powerless.
It's so funny because the power of the algorithm, and you kind of just said it, really comes from us as users of social media. And so if you and you know, of course, I can already hear the chorus. I never watch reels. False. I don't like video content. Like, okay, the majority of people, you know, I remember, when was it that reels started? It's been a few years now.
2021, 2022?
Yeah. And I remember, do you remember like the friction between a bunch of people, especially influencers on Instagram, saying like, I don't want to start creating reels. And there was like, I'm not going to do that. Sure. Okay. You're not going to do that. So you are choosing the path of you don't want to get your content seen. And so now, you know, last year, I will say Chris Loves Julie, or not Chris Loves Julie, I will say Good Influencer reported it first, like carousels are making a really big comeback. We made a reel about that last year. And I talked about like the importance of carousels. And now carousels are making a huge comeback. Instagram just announced. And it's like, you're like, oh, we're doing this now. Instead of, in the reason that I can see where the trends are going is because as a user of Instagram, I can see what I'm drawn to. If I'm watching someone's stories and they put a big block of text on it, which is unusual in stories, you know, stories are sometimes really conversational, and there's a video up of a creator talking, and there's, you know, maybe some links or still images. But when I see a block of text in stories and I stop and read it, and then it goes on to the next slide and I stop and read that, and I see in my own stories, the views on those posts are so much higher. Instagram is also noticing that. And they're saying, wait, my users are pausing to read content. You know, whether it's in stories or in feed. That is why the algorithm changes so frequently. It's recognizing the behaviors of the users and rewarding their users with more of the things that they are liking. That is this big bad scary algorithm, is what you are naturally doing online, and they are curating it for you. I'm one of those weird people, and I say weird people because, like, to be honest, I hear people talk negatively about this all the time, like, oh, this is so scary. And I'm like, wait, isn't this great? Like, I'm one of those people that I'm like, thank you, targeted ads. I was looking for a new makeup brush.
Oh, I'm the same way.
And I did say it out loud, and now I'm getting an ad for it. I don't find that wrong or scary. I find that wonderful.
It's a service.
It's a service. And I feel the same way about the algorithm as a user. I am constantly being fed content that social media knows I'm going to like. Now, when I am listening to, let's just say, Taylor Swift's latest album, or I'm searching on my Spotify for Gracie Abrams live, I want to hear the live version. And then when I open TikTok, I'm fed a lot of concert footage. I am grateful. And our phones are so powerful, and all of that metadata is being gathered by our social channels, and we are being curated content for us. And so if the algorithm isn't working for you as a creator of content, start paying attention to what kind of content you're consuming and get on board.
And that's why we say like Instagram rewards creators who also act as users on the app, because you just know what's going on. You know what's really big right now, where you see things that you're really drawn to, and then to make more content like that. I was just talking yesterday with another influencer, because the CEO of Instagram, who's been way more prevalent in the last year about like getting in front of the camera and talking about things that are really trending right now, said, you're going to get the highest story views and the highest engagement if you post about 3 to 5 stories a day. Now, this is very different from a few years ago when they would say, post as many stories as possible. They want to get people coming back to the app. So I thought, like, why on earth would Instagram want people to be posting less? But it's not that Instagram wants them to be posting less. It's that people may be spending less time on stories. So they're telling you, look, people aren't sticking around for 100 story slides. Here's an optimal amount of what people are sticking around to watch. Not to say that you can only post 5 stories a day, but it was that twist in thinking of like, it doesn't logically make sense for Instagram to make this change in the algorithm, but it does make sense that user behavior has changed and people are just watching stories less right now.
And I also think with that, posting less in your stories, I think the thing that's not being said out loud, but is what I'm seeing happening, is a lot of that story content that we just labeled, oh, this feels like story content, is actually being put in feeds now. It's a lot, like there's a more casual feed that is being curated right now. And so again, as creators, we have to get out of our comfort zones of feeling like only our most polished content happens or goes in feed, to saying like, I might casually post this thing that feels more like stories in my feed, because that again is what the algorithm is prioritizing now, AKA that is what people are gravitating toward. That people want to scroll vertically through a feed, and they want to see casual content and things that, obviously are going to stop them in their tracks. And right now, it's so counterintuitive, but what's stopping people in their tracks is unpolished content. We've all seen the most polished content, the most produced, the most everything. What we haven't seen is this unpolished content. And so I think that's why there's this constant shift with the algorithm. It's like, oh, maybe those things would do better in feeds now, or maybe, stories, post less in stories because you're going to get more views, but really it's like people don't have the capacity to watch 100 stories anymore from the same person. They want more variety.
Yeah. And I know, Sue's the editor for the blog over on CLJ just went to like this conference and came back and was sharing some things she learned. And one of the things was that, millennials and Gen X who are primarily on Instagram are online in the morning and at night. Whereas Gen Z, they're online all throughout the day. And that's 100% reflected over on TikTok. You can see that. And so it's almost like understanding who your audience is on each platform that kind of empowers you to know how you should be posting.
I think that's really wise. And I think it's also part of our job as creators to see that and adapt and like not stomp your feet about it, because you can't quote unquote beat the algorithm.
I hear that a lot, but I don't know, like what does that look like for you?
You know, I have some tricks up my sleeve. I think we talked about this the other week where it's like, oh, well, I'll give you two different examples. So the other week, again, this was probably, now it's been 2 months, but we needed a viral reel. Our followers, you know, I like to keep them in a healthy, positive region. Although I'm not consciously seeking to grow my following, I want to stay in the green, which means you always have to be gaining. You always have to be gaining to stay in the green. And so I knew we needed a viral reel. And so we pulled out all the tricks. Okay. We went with a viral audio. We focused on what always hits with our audience, which is an outdoor thing. We added some tips to the reel. It went viral immediately. We did all the things that we knew were going to hit. It hit. Then, you know, this week when we are reflecting on some content that didn't hit, we're saying we had to dig a little bit deeper. You know, I'm like, we can't go back to our old tricks. We need to see, because a lot of those are based off of the algorithm from, you know, earlier this year, and things have changed. And so instead, we started diving into the content that we're saving and that we're sharing. And we had a little show and tell of, hey, this is the food content that I saved recently. And we all watched it and we took notes. And it was like, oh, there's like some really nice ASMR. Oh, there's not a voiceover here. Or look at this carousel that I sent to you. It has like, it's almost like a little journal. Like this is just text. Or this has like a little story in the whole carousel. Or I love how this carousel has images and then videos and then a little text. And it's done in a font that's not so produced. And it does require, like when I talk about beating the algorithm, I think it takes taking a step back and saying like, okay, I am continuing to do this, which used to serve me really well, and now it's not. So now what am I enjoying? What am I sharing? What am I gravitating toward online? What am I seeing other people do that is really like hitting with me or resonating with me? And then obviously taking that and making it my own. My sister, who's an artist, she was talking about how at first, you know, these artists would, you probably have seen it, Becca, they like are holding their painting backwards and then there's like a slow reveal. And it's like, oh yeah, I used to watch every one. Now I see it and I'm like, I'm not watching another one of these. And it's like part of this job, like the hardest part of this job is keeping your creativity so sharp. And that means constantly changing it up. And you should find joy in that, I'll say. Like I find great joy in that. And I hope that everyone listening does too, because that is the job. Like, Becca, your job is to like coach these creatives through this program and answer all of their questions. And, you know, Victoria's job is to book sponsorships, and she's so great at that. And there's so many different people on our team that have these different roles to play. But like ultimately my job is to be the most creative version of myself and to find joy in finding what's next.
Yeah. And really, like, to me, you're not trying to beat the algorithm. You're trying to like stay ahead of the algorithm.
Yeah.
I think beating the algorithm has this undertone of like the algorithm is a bad thing. Trying to stay ahead of the algorithm is just viewing it as like the baseline of how people are behaving online right now and staying ahead of that.
Yeah. And I think the wonderful thing is like to be a trendsetter, you're not really a slave to the algorithm. You are trying to get ahead of it. It's like, oh, if everyone is, let's say everyone's doing carousels right now, and you find a really unique way of doing a carousel. It's like, I'm not going to just do a drop of like my best of June. I'm going to do it in a different way. And I think that there's like a lot of fun, creative things. And in Monday's meeting, it was really fun to look at some things that we are enjoying right now, consuming online, and then saying like matching some content ideas in like that we were planning on producing this week and saying, well, what if we did it this other way? And I think that is all about getting ahead of the algorithm and providing that service to your audience of like, I'm going to show you something that's going to stop you in your scroll. You know, there's this whole book about this purple cow. And basically the premise is you know, are on a road trip and anytime someone drives past a cow, especially if there's kids in the car, they're going to say, cow.
Right.
You know, you're going to point out the cow. Oh, there's a cow.
I almost said moo.
Okay, sure. You might say moo, sure. But you're going to acknowledge probably that there's a cow, or you might not, depending on how many cows you see a day. In North Carolina, we see not as many cows, and so we point out every cow and every horse that we see. And then you don't remember that cow again. You don't even think about that cow again because even if you don't see a cow every day, you've seen a cow. Now, if it was a purple cow, you're going to talk about that purple cow. I'm sorry, till the cows come home. Like, you're going to talk about that purple cow to everyone you see. You're going to share it. You're going, like, that purple cow is going to be imprinted in your mind. And when we're talking about creating content, we're not talking about showing people something that maybe they don't see every day, but they've seen before. We're talking about stopping them in their scrolls. We're talking about creating something that they are going to want to share with other people. And when I start thinking about creating content, or when I start thinking about content that I share with my friends, that has been that has completely changed my mindset. I'm like, oh, it's got to be this or this or this. It's got to be something like I've never seen before, or it has to be something that makes me laugh or is really educational or gives me like everything I need to know right in this carousel and is not leading me somewhere else for the information. And those are the kinds of content that like I'm excited to create now.
Right. And it like, so last year, content that was saved a lot was pushed out in the algorithm really quickly. Now, this year, content that's shared a lot is pushed out. And I think it is that extra step of like seeing something and not just thinking, oh, I'm going to save this for me later. I'll do something with this later. It's like, I love this. I want to send it to someone right now. I want to share it to my stories right now. Like that is like top tier entertainment right there.
Right. And I actually love this emphasis because it's making social media social again. It's taking this platform that has kind of put us all in our own bubbles. And now it's focusing more on what are you sharing with people that you actually know. And I love, like, it honestly gives me chills to think about how this platform that kind of isolated a lot of people or even let's just say it has isolated certain people to really prioritize creators creating content that their consumers want to share is really a powerful stance. And I think it's something as us creators, we all need to get on board with. Like, what's content that you want to share with your friends or family or friends? Like, what are you going to share? And let's create that kind of content, because that is what's going to make social media social again. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, get excited about it.
Becca and I love chatting with you every week, but in between the podcast episodes, we're hanging out in our influencer mastermind. With a good influencer subscription, you get access to our exclusive course library designed to help you build your business as an influencer, and our mastermind forum on Facebook. This is your place to ask questions, network, and workshop. Here you can receive feedback from thousands of other influencers and our team. Listeners get 30% off their monthly subscription by using the code podcast at checkout. See you in the mastermind.
Do you think, obviously influencers have a lot of power, they have an influence. Do you think your audience trains the algorithm more than you do as an influencer? Who do you think has the greater influence on the algorithm, I guess is what I'm saying?
I think that I think it's so split. I think that audiences have more power over the algorithm. But ultimately, as creators, we are creating what our audiences are seeing. Let's say there's a music festival and there's 10 performers at this music festival, okay? And they are all playing their sets. And this one stage, they have like color bombs going off at their set, and they're throwing t-shirts, and like there's this really interactive thing happening over there, so much so that 75% of everyone at the festival goes over and sees this band that's playing that has all of this interactive stuff going on. And the other players, the other 9 bands are like, oh my gosh, there's no one here. But they can see what this other creator's doing. Are they going to just ignore that this other performer is doing all of this extra stuff and they're just going to keep playing their guitars? No, they're going to liven up their sets. They're going to do more and to attract audiences. And so when you say like who has more power, the audience has more power over what's being seen because it's what they're gravitated toward. However, us as creators can recognize where audiences are being pulled or what they're gravitating toward, and we can implement those things in our own content. We don't have to sit as victims and say, well, everyone wants to see this, but I don't do that. You can do that. You are free to do that. You do not have to sit idly and say, like you saying like the algorithm is prioritizing this. That is the same as saying my audience is prioritizing this. Those are the same. It's synonymous.
Yeah. For 100%. Wow, we're getting really philosophical on this episode, but I'm loving it.
And I think that's a really hard truth for people. And I think when I started this, I said it's the hardest thing to like say out loud that maybe the issue is with me, because that's the worst. It would be really easy if the issue was something I couldn't fix, you know?
Doesn't it give you a lot of peace of mind to feel like nobody wants to feel like they don't have any control. And what we're saying here in this episode is that you always have complete control.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be like a weight off to say like, there's no more algorithm to blame. The algorithm is me.
Right. The algorithm is me. It's you. It's everyone using Instagram. And if you we always talk about giving yourself 30 minutes to engage with other creators in your niche. I think that's a really powerful way to network and to gain new followers. But also giving yourself some just consumer time is really important. And by consuming, I mean enjoying the platform, realizing, and also while you do that, take note of what you're saving. Take note of what you're sharing, because those are the kinds of content that, guess what? It's being shown to you because other people are sharing it. I was just talking to Chris about something that came up in my For You page, and Chris just got a new car and it's really fast. And this video came up in my For You page of this little kid sitting in a front seat. And there was lots of issues with the video, okay? He wasn't wearing a seatbelt, whatever. The car was going really fast, okay? Someone was clearly taping him while the car's going very fast and doesn't have a seatbelt on. But this kid is in the front seat and the car starts going so fast, he pulls his feet up in like one of those like rides where like they turn really fast that you like kind of just stay up in the air. This kid was like floating on his front seat because the car was going so fast. And I got home from the gym and I was like, oh my gosh, I saw this video on my For You page, and I started describing the video. He's like, oh my gosh, Brandon sent that to me. And so we are seeing content that our friends and family are sharing with each other. And so the content that you're being served is when you say, oh, well, I'm being served content that I don't like, then other people in your circle do like it. So also take note of that.
There's someone to blame there, and it's your friends and family.
Those are the funnest people to blame anyway.
I got this question in the mastermind, and I think like everything we've said today kind of answers this question, but it says, I'm wondering if you guys have hacked this current algorithm. I've analyzed everything. I've tried different styles, different content that always performs well, and nothing is getting my views up. Followers are basically at a standstill, and I feel like throwing in the towel. And I guess my question, because I do see this a lot, is people who are like, I have tried everything. And I'm like, let me take a look at your page, because I guarantee you there is something else to try. There is always, like I said, you have control over the situation. You have control over the algorithm because the algorithm is you. And so it might mean spending more time online looking at and analyzing the things that you're saving and sharing. It might mean, honestly, I think it's a good idea to go to other platforms. Go to TikTok, go to Pinterest, see what's trending over there, what's really big in your niche right now, and implementing those things. You may need to niche down more. You may need to engage with other accounts more. There's always something to be done. And you don't have to think about hacking the algorithm, because there is no hacking the algorithm. It's just staying ahead of it. It's staying on top of it.
I'll give one last tip. If you've tried everything, and try it again. But also, it might not be a bad idea to like turn off your phone for a day or two. And like, because I think as creators, we do get this burnout that can't be fixed by more. It's like, well, if only I just did more and more. And it's like, I've learned this hard truth myself. Like, creativity cannot happen under stress. And I've forced it so many times. And what I think is my best idea might be my 11th best idea under stress. And it's like, if you feel like you're on this, like you're up against this dead end where you're like, I've tried everything. I'm putting out my best content. The hard truth is it's not hitting. You've identified that problem. Like, this is not hitting and this was my best content. And I love your tip. Like, go experience other platforms, and then also like go get inspired somewhere else. And I do think that the energy that you experience in your real life comes through your content. I don't know how the algorithm, I don't know how all of my followers know when I'm not particularly excited about something, but it always shows up in the views. It always shows up in the virality of it. It's like, if I wasn't super excited about it, they know. And I can't get super excited about something I'm not like feeling 100% invested in. And sometimes like the burnout of being creative day in and day out, you do have to take like a little breather and feel inspired again. And that could be experiencing other types of social media. That could be taking a trip. It could be just like sitting still. I know I get all of my best ideas when I go on a really long walk, and they don't hit until after the 45-minute mark. It's like those first 45 minutes are just warm up. And then all of a sudden it's like ideas are flowing. And whatever you need to do to get into that flow state where ideas are flowing, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to like just think of one idea. Think of like 100 ideas and then see which ones you're most excited about. And I guarantee those are going to come through your content.
I love that. I love that. Sometimes you just need to take a step back. Take a step back, whatever that looks like for you. But your homework for this episode is to add into your calendar every week, your work hours, whatever you have, 30 minutes to be a user on the app. Whatever app it is, I encourage you to go and try out other apps and see what's going on over there, see what's really hitting over there. But dedicate some time to act as a user, not just post and leave the app. Take notes on what you see, what you're really loving. We'd love to hear in the comments what's really hitting for you right now in your niche. And we will see you guys next week.
Until next time, follow us on YouTube and Instagram at Good Influencer. And if you're ready to join a whole community of influencers growing organically and getting paid to do what they love, join the Good Influencer Mastermind by visiting our website, good-influencer.com. If you're going to be an influencer, be a good one.